right, everyone. Welcome to You Have a Story podcast, which is an extension of the brand ToTsFrishion, where fashion meets inspiration. And today we have an incredible guest. Everyone's incredible, but today we have an incredible guest in the name of Victoria Nolali, but I call her Miss Vicky. We used to work together. She was my colleague at Temple University Hospital, where I am a nurse. She was also a nurse too, but later on she ventured out and she's teaching, bringing knowledge to incoming like nurses and helping cultivate a good foundation for these nurses. So it's my privilege to bring her onto this channel, like the show, and have her share our journey and the story of breast cancer, of which I did not know. Like I was just telling her before we started recording this podcast that, like, Miss Vicky, you don't look like you've been through breast cancer. I mean, it shouldn't be written on your forehead, but like I'm like, you don't really look like what you've been through. Like, you're not just only a survivor, you're thriving through it, and you're using that as an avenue to like encourage people. So I want to say thank you for having us. Thank you for coming. And as you know, we go through, like, maybe sometimes I randomly ask people, tell us about yourself. But today we are going to do some icebreakers, and I love icebreakers. So, and that will give us a bit like an opportunity to know a little bit more about Miss Vicky. So, Miss Vicky, what's your favorite food and why?
Oh, my favorite food. Well, it's changed since I was younger. When I was younger, my favorite food was a nice steak and baked potatoes. But now I think my favorite food has to be one of the soups that I like making soups and discovering new
Okay.
things. And recently I made a cabbage soup and it was
Oh,
awesome. It was delicious. And so now, especially since fall is here,
yeah.
I'm really into the different types of soups. I've made the cabbage soup. I've made a wild rice and chicken soup. Just anything that's kind of like a comfort food kind of thing. Those are my favorite. I'm very picky, you know. Um, a lot of people will say to me, "You can't be black." Because I don't like fish, I don't like seafood, I don't like watermelon. I don't
Oh,
eat I know, I don't eat, chicken wings, I'm a little, different in that department, but
oh,
most
Miss Vicky,
foods I
I can agree with you on the watermelon though. Like, that is my We have to come back to this. Like, we gotta come back to this.
Oh, I just don't. I like the flavor, but I can't eat the actual watermelon, and I'm not sure why. That's how I've always been.
Oh
Any type of
Lord.
melon, I just,
Oh.
and I
Mm-mm.
think, maybe for me, like a lot of people, it's the texture of certain
Mm-hmm.
things, that kind of turns me away. But
Right.
yeah, my
I
favorite is, like I would say, comfort types of
have
foods,
to.
casseroles and soups mainly. Yes.
Yeah. I love soups too, but I can't believe the watermelon though. I still need to get over that. All right. Well, thank you for sharing what your favorite food is. Even though I don't agree with the watermelon, I'm still going back to the watermelon. I'm not.
Oh, you can't believe it. Yes.
All right. Moving on. So, what's the favorite part of your day and why?
I think my favorite part of the day is when I first wake up. And I
Okay.
say that because I feel blessed to have another day.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk to people about it, and, especially when they're having a bad day, and I say, you know, I thank God that I was able to wake up and He's
Mm-hmm.
given me another chance to get things right or
Yeah.
to do better. So that's my favorite time of the day. I'm not an early morning person by any means. So my day may not start until after 11 o'clock. And I stay up late, at night. I usually don't go to sleep till maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And
Wow.
And that's, one of the things. I worked night shift most
Yes.
of my nursing
Mhm.
career, and just gotten used to that. But I never was, even when I was young, I never liked getting up early in the morning. And I remember my sister would get up at 5:30 in the morning to prepare for school. Me, I would wait till the very last minute because I took my bath the night before. I did everything I needed to other than to brush my teeth, which I did in the morning. I would have all my clothes ironed and laid out for the week so that I wouldn't have to, so that, and would get to the bus stop on time. In the
Yeah.
meantime, my sister, who would get up at 5:30 in the morning, was always running just to get to the bus stop on time. So I think, I just think about that a lot because, and it took people a while to
Yeah.
realize that.
I think what your sister needs is time management.
Yes. Oh, yes. I know it. She was 2 hours late to her own wedding. So,
Let's not talk about that. Not right now.
right. Yes.
All right. And so lastly, what's your dream vacation? You never know. Someone might be listening to this right now. Just want to give you your dream vacation.
What is my dream vacation? I've never been out of the country.
Okay.
Um, and I don't know that I actually have a place that I have been. Well, I always had the chance to go to Ghana, and I think that would be a place where I would like to visit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ghana is a beautiful country. It's
Yeah.
close to, I'm Nigerian. It's
Mhm.
literally close to Nigeria, but
Okay.
I've never been there. It's one on my bucket list still, but it's a beautiful country, just like any African country, wink, wink.
Yes. I think that, when especially after watching, Black Panther and all that and seeing
Hmm.
all that, the beauty, and not to actually to experience it, and
Yeah.
my daughter did her ancestry DNA, and our background is primarily Nigerian. So,
Oh, it's
yeah.
like your auntie.
Yes. Oh, yes. So I think that's, would be my dream to
Okay.
just visit home.
Yeah. And may the Lord bring your dream to pass. Amen. We seal
Amen.
it. All right. Moving on. Now we can dive into your story since we learned a little bit about you that you do not like watermelon. I
Yes.
don't think I'll ever stop talking about that. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. So can you tell us about your story, your cancer story?
Yes. So when I think about it now, it's a story where, you think in your lifetime that you will never be that person
Hmm.
to experience or to have something like that. And even though there was cancer in my family, but it was no one very close. Well, I had an aunt and a couple of cousins that had breast cancer, and they're still living and well with it, but they never really shared their stories. Like, I would
Hmm.
hear bits and pieces, again feeling that it was so far removed. So in 2012, I had rotator cuff
Okay.
surgery on my left shoulder, and I was out of work for 6 months, and so that was fine. But then, in, I guess, around January or February of 2013, I remember that I had not had my mammogram. I thought I did, and I remember
Hmm.
in my GYN saying, giving me the paper to get the mammogram, and I had gone and had some blood work done, and I saw this sign at, because I usually go to South Jersey Radiology, but I saw a
Yeah.
sign for another imaging place, and they're like, "Oh, come for your mammograms. Sit down
Hmm.
and have, a cup of tea and some, little hors d'oeuvres, and feel comfortable." So I'm like, "Oh, I'd like to have my mammogram there, as it sounds nice." And so I called the woman that I spoke to. She was kind of rude because I said I wanted to get a mammogram. And she said, well, when was your last mammogram? And I said, well, I think it was last June, May or June. That's what I thought.
Mhm.
And so she says, well, we need to know exactly where did you have it done before? So I told her, and she said, but we need those records and we can't just do it. So after that, I decided I don't want to be bothered with her. So I called South Jersey Radiology and I said I would set up an appointment with them. They told me, now, like I said, this was around January, February. They told me that my last mammogram had been in December. So December of 2012. Was it December? No, it was December of 2011. 2011. And so basically I almost went a whole year and not had the mammogram. So I was like, okay, well, can I schedule one now? So I scheduled it for May. I think that's when I was
Okay.
able to get it. It was in May. And usually mammogram, everything's fine. It was like, well, they would do an ultrasound if there was anything unusual. So I go in for the mammogram and I'm thinking I'm going to be in and out. They're like, oh, we need to do an ultrasound. I'm like, oh, okay. And so then they call, I'm still waiting for the results. And then they said they wanted me to speak with the radiologist. And they asked, and so I'm like, and my husband had brought me. So I said, well, can I have him come in? They're like, sure, sure. So when he came in, they said, we think we saw something. It's very small, but we're going to have to, to do a biopsy
Hmm.
to be sure. And I said, okay. And then, and I was, of course, now I'm thinking that something's wrong, that,
Yeah.
they saying they found something. And then, of course, with myself, I'm praying about it. And, my
Mhm.
husband's saying, it's nothing to worry about. Whatever it is, we'll get through this. So had the biopsy the end of May. So May 31st, I had the biopsy. And let me tell you, that is so painful. And they explained to me that they couldn't put me to sleep or anything like that. They couldn't really do a local.
Mhm.
Hopefully things have changed. But when I had the biopsy, I had to lay on this. I don't know. I always remember it being like lifted up, like almost like the top bunk of a bed,
Yeah.
and laying on my abdomen. My breast is down in this hole, and the technician is up under there to do this, what's called a cone biopsy to extract the tumor. Of course, once the biopsy came back, it was, positive, and they said it was, they caught it very early, which was positive. And the reason so they said I wouldn't have felt anything. I wouldn't have known if I had not had the mammogram.
Mm.
And so I had to find an oncologist, and they recommended an oncologist and a breast surgeon. So I did my research.
Yeah.
Also had to have a radiologist, oncologist also who I would follow. So I had three people. Plus I was supposed to have a nurse navigator. So initially someone suggested Penn, and I had my daughter go with me to that interview or consultation because my husband couldn't go.
Yeah.
And so my daughter was asking her questions that I couldn't think of to ask. Even though being a nurse, when it's you, it's a whole different story. But it was something about that oncologist that I didn't care for. And I like, no. So I asked around and someone recommended another oncologist with Virtua. And at that time they were with Fox Chase.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
everybody was Fox Chase, which was good. And everyone were very, very caring and helpful, except for the navigator who I spoke to her once and she
Mhm.
never got back to me. So I basically went through this kind of by myself, but, with family. Breast surgeon was such a beautiful person, and she would listen and she had me also do an MRI. She said, well, just in case, we're just going to check, and that way you can do both breasts and all. And I remember initially when I went to do the MRI, my shoulder was still, I was still in pain from my shoulder. So I started crying. So they couldn't do the MRI. They thought I was claustrophobic, but I said,
Yeah.
no, I'm just in pain and trying to, stay in that position with my arm and shoulder. They gave me Ativan to take for the next time I went. So that went well. But so then I had to have the lumpectomy, and I was working. And I remember I was talking to the nurse manager at the time, and I said, I think I'm going to wait until, she said, you better go and get it done now. So I decided on a date in October. No, August. Yes, in August. But I remember I had posted about a little bit about the journey, my
Yeah.
discovery on Facebook. And when I came to work, some of my coworkers, of course, they came up and were hugging me. But one of my coworkers just looked at me, and she wouldn't, you know, and then she would look away and she wouldn't say anything. And finally, I went over to her and I asked her, I said, what's wrong? She said, Miss Vicky, you're going to die. I said, I hope not. She said, well, you have cancer. I said, yeah, but they caught it early. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to live. She said, you sure? I said, yes, I'm going to be okay. And I know how people, sometimes they think it's contagious. Sometimes they are afraid to get close because they think the person is going to die. But I was very surprised to hear that from her. One is being a nurse, two is being a nurse that work with women. But labor and delivery is a whole different field from oncology. So anyway, so I had the surgery in August, and then I was gonna have then I had to go to radiation. So on August, it was same day. My family was there, with my mom and my husband
Yeah.
and my uh, sisters and my brother and my children. Well, my son, he was inpatient. He didn't want to stay. I think he was worried too. So he left. He said he wanted to go home. It was hard first. My husband had to help me, get dressed and all of those kind of things. And then I had to wait before I could do the radiation. So radiation was in the end of August, beginning of September. I know they told me it would only have to be about 3 weeks instead of
Yeah.
6 weeks because they got it all. They said they got it all, but they wanted to do the radiation. And I was telling people I know I would never get a tattoo because they had to do a tattoo in the places where they were going to do the radiation. And that hurt so bad. It brought me to tears. And they're so small. The surgeon, she did such a great job. People didn't even know where my
Yeah.
scar was. So I had the radiation, but I'd gone back to work. I took off like probably a month before that for the surgery and all that. And so I said, I have to go back to work. I'm just going to do the radiation while I work. And so, but they told me I couldn't do it at Temple. I wanted to do it at Temple, like when I got off in the morning. And they said,
Yeah.
no, because I said, and on the days off, I would just do it at home. They said I had to stay with one place.
Yeah.
So my husband would have to come pick me up and take me there. Sometimes I was trying to, I was falling asleep.
Yeah.
But it went well. So I had that in August, and I had to wait a couple of months before they would start me on the hormones. So I was going to be on the tamoxifen, which you're on for 5 years. I was on that. In the meantime, I had to get an oncologist, and she would. At first, I didn't like her, but she turned out to be great, and I still see her. And I saw the radiation oncologist. I saw her for up till my 5 year mark. And I remember ringing the bell once that part was done. And that was like awesome. And then the tamoxifen was horrible. I started really having bad night sweats, hot
Mhm.
flashes, and everything. So they put me on a medication that's usually used for depression, which is good. I guess it worked for depression. It was an antidepressant, but it was also good for hot flashes, which is called citalopram or Celexa. So then after that, they decided, I think I was on the tamoxifen for maybe a year. They switched me to Remedex, which was better. It was, I
Mhm.
guess, lower with the hormones and everything. So I was only on that. So I was on that up until uh, the 5 year mark. But you know, those medications um, are photosensitive. So when I was go out, I had to wear a big hat and, you know, and sunglasses and things like that. But every day I was still, you know, at the radiation. I was going to work, tired, coming home, and then on the medication. But I was getting better, and and it was funny. Also, around that time is when I actually sat down and talked with my cousin. She
Mhm.
lived in Georgia at the time, and I was asking her about it because nobody ever talks about it. My family's my family was the kind of people that, you know, don't tell things. You know, you don't know. And I remember, when I asked my cousin about her journey, she's like 10 years older than me, and she said that she just told her family that, you know, if they're gonna cry and be all upset and everything, she didn't need them to be there for her. She wanted them to, you know, um, be able to handle it and whatever it was she was going through, but she wasn't
Yeah.
really going to talk to. But her mother also had breast cancer, and her mother was in remission like 3 times, and they told me that um, she never had surgery. She just stayed on. I guess she was on tamoxifen, and that aunt, she's still alive. She's 92 now, and she just last year was diagnosed again with breast cancer, and finally was on chemo for that. But before she wasn't. She was on, this time she had the radiation, she had the chemo, um, and she's doing well so far. You know, she has her days. So my cousin, when I was talking to her at the time of my diagnosis, she had been in remission for 10 years. The 11th year, it came back. The
Wow.
cancer came back. And I was like, oh my goodness, because now I'm at my 10th year. And I'm like, so next year, is it going to come back? You know, you have those thoughts and fears. But anyway, my cousin, she's doing well. I had another cousin, I would consider her a second cousin because her mother was my first cousin. That cousin passed away, but she had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So
Okay.
that's she passed from that. Through that journey, I started meeting other people that, you know, like you said, you never would know that they had breast cancer. And their journey was different from mine in the fact that they wound up having to have chemo, they had mastectomies, you
Mm.
know, and they lost their hair. People thought I lost mine, but I just had cut it off because I was just tired of it. And they're like, "Oh, you had chemo?" I said, "No, just the radiation." "Oh, your hair looks good like that." "Sure." And I said, "Yeah, but it wasn't because of chemo. I just, you know." So you know, went to a lot of different events and, you know, listening to other people's stories and just becoming more engaged in that. And that's one of the things that I sometimes do, you know, because you don't think about it until it happens to you. So now you want to be able to support other people through
Yeah.
that journey. And I was thinking about the women that fought so hard and they passed away, or the women that were just so angry. Why did this happen to me? Why, you know, why am I going through this? What happened? So, you know, so now when I tell my story, like when I do health fairs or things like that, you know, I tell women the importance of a mammogram in an early screening. Because for me, and I just told the story to my students, I thought about it. If I had have gotten that mammogram that following December, they wouldn't have seen anything. It would have been another year
Hmm.
and it probably would have grown bigger.
Yeah.
So I trust that God, as always, knows what he's doing, you know, because I forgot.
Mhm.
And so they caught it very early. But still, you know, I consistently try to make sure I do my yearly screenings, no matter what it is. Um, And I try to instill that in other women,
Yeah.
especially in Black and brown women, because we have that fear. One of my students said, "But it hurts so bad." And I said,
Mm,
it doesn't last long. And, you think about the pain of actually having the cancer, what you would have to go through. Pretty much my journey when I was 5 years, my daughter had a little dinner party for me, which was a surprise. I had no idea she was going to do that. So
that's beautiful.
I'm blessed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And from what I can tell, you had a lot of like support system during your journey with like breast cancer. And what I also wanted to say is, yes, there should be fears, but I know like your story, like everyone's story is different. Your story doesn't have to reciprocate your cousin who got the cancer again, the 11th year. Yeah.
But I had a scare this year too, and I'd had surgery on my right shoulder. And
Mm-hmm.
then it took them a while when they were doing my mammogram and screening, then the ultrasound, and that took a long time for them to come back. So I was thinking, is there a connection? But fortunately, they said there was no sign of cancer.
Awesome, awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And after your cancer treatment, how did you feel when you rang that bell?
Amazing. It was just like, wow. I'm actually, and because it's a year, so it's a year once all your
Mhm.
treatments and things are done, and it felt amazing, but it also felt surreal. One, because I did not imagine that I would ever have cancer,
Yeah,
and two, because I was able to get through that process, that part of my life story, in a sense, pretty much unscathed, even though, still the scar is still
yeah.
there. The tattoos are still there. The mental part of it, the emotional part of it, I've been able to overcome that, and knowing that, everything is going the way that it should, hopefully and prayerfully.
Amazing, amazing. And I know that once this testimony that God has placed in you will continue to be permanent by God's grace. Yeah. What does it mean for you to be? I don't consider you a survivor anymore. You're thriving. So what does it mean for you to be in quotation mark like a thriver? I don't even know if that's a word.
I started using that term a few years ago. I used to go to this group of women, and we would just talk about it was for people who were going through anxiety and depression and all, and
Mhm.
it was called Think Pink. And I remember talking, speaking about my breast cancer journey a little bit. I was still in that journey, but I had said that, that I was a survivor. And another woman spoke up and said, she said, "I'm no longer a survivor, I'm a thriver." And I said to myself, wow, but what does that mean? What does it mean to be a thriver? And I guess for me, when I actually sat down and thought about it, is that a thriver is someone that has come through a certain journey. They've survived that journey, but now they're able to continue on past that. And
Beyond it.
in thriving, you also recognize the need to give back to other people who may just be beginning that journey, or who are in that journey and maybe feel like they're the only ones, that no one knows that or can empathize with what
Yeah.
they're going through. Yeah.
So what you're saying is that we should like even as breast cancer like cancer survivors in general, not just breast cancer, people shouldn't look forward to just being a survivor. They should look forward to being thriving beyond does breast cancer or cancer in general because cancer is not your identity. It's something that like you've passed through,
Hmm.
but you shouldn't like identify yourself as just being a survivor. You should look forward to thriving and living beyond that and being a testimony just like you are. What?
Yes, there you go.
Okay, see? But this is great. Oh, I love the angle though. I love the way the concept in which you're viewing this right now. Because a lot of people are just like, "Oh, I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor." But like beyond that, what are you?
Yeah, then we become more than that, and
Mm-hmm.
and we do become a testament, or testimony, and you want to reach more people before they get to that point. One of the things I didn't mention is that they have the genetic testing. So I did do the genetic testing because I have a son and a daughter, and they said there is a familial link between prostate cancer and breast cancer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I did the genetic testing, and fortunately it's not genetic. I'm not sure, what it is and how it
Mm-hmm.
occurred or why it occurred. But at least there's less of a chance for my children to develop prostate or breast cancer. So I think about that, and I think about the importance of people who have family members to do the genetic testing. And I actually, my aunt has another daughter, and I
Mm-hmm.
tried to encourage her to get tested, but she said she's not going to. And for a lot of people not to get tested is more fear than not, and the fear of finding out something that they don't want to know,
Yeah.
which is I was, tell my students the same thing. It's better to know early where, you can get treatment and probably don't have to go through a lot more
Mm-hmm.
than that. But I don't know, it's hard to get people to see that and to
Yeah.
understand it.
But I think like if we creating more awareness also like helps too. Like we you just saying it, people listening, they'll be like, "Oh, okay, she has a point." Because early detection can solve a lot of like issues
Mhm.
and problems. So I feel like creating that awareness goes a long way.
Yes.
Yeah. So rounding up, how would you encourage someone who's on this journey of like cancer, like who's undergoing cancer treatment through like chemotherapy, radiation? How would you encourage them today?
So, I'm thinking about how I was encouraged through that. I think the biggest encouragement is having a strong support system. A lot of times when we go through any type of disease process, be it cancer, be it an autoimmune disease or whatever, we oftentimes lack good support. And the support doesn't have to come from your family. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it can come from friends. It could come from people you don't know. Getting involved in groups, group therapies, other people who have been there. You know, um, I got to the point in my life where I don't say to people because I've been there that I understand, because I don't. I don't. Everybody's journey is different.
Different, yeah.
But I believe that listening to others and how they coped or how they got through is a major help in being able to get through your own, to being able to fight your own battles, feeling like you're not alone. There are people who care enough, that they were able to get through it, and hopefully by that you also. And the other thing is just supporting research or supporting the walks that they have, in May and October, just getting involved, sometimes doing stuff, and not just focusing on you, but focusing on something else or someone else,
Yeah.
or taking up a hobby. A lot of people have done that, and like knitting and crocheting or painting and
Mm-hmm.
different things within your scope of ability to do, just to give your mind something else to be able to focus on other than the cancer itself, and realizing that like you said earlier, you are not cancer, and
Mhm.
cancer is not you. That's a diagnosis. You are still a human being, and as long as you have breath, and as long as you're in this world, and God wakes you up every morning, you have an opportunity for things to change and to get better. So I think that's my thing, trying to be optimistic and believing that there's good, and that out of that good, positive things will come. It might just be that moment that
Mhm.
they found a cure, at the moment when you least expect it, and you're ready to give up, to lose hope. That's I usually go by too, that I don't give up hope, and I don't. I've learned to be strong in my faith, because I just never know, and I know that God has brought me and brought my family through so much over the years, that what else can I do?
Yeah.
But if I can help, like I said, if I can help someone along the way, let me do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ooh, what a way to round up. But yes, I totally agree with you because we are made for such a time as this.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what I'll use to round us up. We are made for such a
The
time as this.
time is
Is
this.
in everything we have, whatever we go through, however we go through it, there's always something, like you said, like God wants us to learn from it. And if it wakes us up in the morning, that means He still has a plan for us. So
Mhm.
thank you for sharing your story with us. It
You
was such
so
an incredible time with you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. All right. We've come to another end of You Have a Story podcast, and today with Victoria Nolly, who I call Miss Vicky. You've had an incredible journey of breast cancer, and now she's thriving for 11 years. So I hope you are encouraged by this. And remember, this is You Have a Story podcast, where fashion meets inspiration. If you would like to share your cancer journey, cancer story, just send me an email at contact@ToTsFrishion.com, or fill out the link in the bio, in the description. So until next time, take care and be encouraged by this story.